What's up, everybody? Back with another Bible study. Back here in the book of Daniel. Here with Daniel chapter 7. This is one of the best, one of the craziest chapters in the Bible. There's so much in here, and a lot to understand. And there's also different levels to the understanding. There's past fulfillments and future fulfillments, and take everything I present to the Word of God and to prayer. This is just what I'm seeing in here, and let's see. So let's go. Daniel 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. So what we have here, four winds, that's what we see here in Revelation chapter 7. After this I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of the earth, so that no wind would blow on the earth, or the sea, or on any tree. And the winds, that's the first four seals being released, being broken. The four horsemen. And what we see right here, the Hebrew word for stirring up here actually means to break forth. So what we see here is when the winds that these angels are holding back here in Revelation chapter 7 are released. And four great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion, and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground, and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And a human mind also was given to it. So we have, well, let me just keep reading first. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth, between its teeth. And thus they said to it, Arise, devour much meat. After this I kept looking, and behold another one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Alright, well, I'm going to stop here and go back through a little bit of this. So the first was like a lion with the wings of an eagle. So we have one fulfillment, which is, we see the same thing back in Daniel chapter 2. We see Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom of Babylon was the head of gold. Then after them, another kingdom, which was the Medo-Persian kingdom. And a third one, bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And that's the Grecian kingdom. So we have a fulfillment. We have that same thing here in Daniel chapter 7, but there's also a future fulfillment. So first we have the lion with the wings of an eagle. So that's Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar. It says, I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground, and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a human mind was given to it. And what we see here in Daniel 4 with Nebuchadnezzar, It says, immediately the word concerning Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled, and he was driven away from mankind, and began eating grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. So he was kind of the opposite of this. A beast mind was given to him instead of a human mind. Meaning, because this is the beast, part of the beast. So we have that with the lion in Babylon. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in his mouth and between his teeth, and thus they said it would arise, devour much meat. And this is the Medo-Persian Empire, which we see here on itiswritten.com. It says the fierceness of the Medo-Persian soldiers, and raised up on one side because the Persians were more powerful, I believe. The fierceness of the Medo-Persian soldiers is depicted in the bear of verse 5. When the Medes and Persians overthrew Babylon, they also conquered Lydia and Egypt. The 3 ribs in the bear's mouth represent these 3 nations: Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. And verse 6, after this I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on his back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So here's where I start to differ with a lot of people on this understanding. I could be wrong, but this is what I believe it is. So the leopard, we know from Daniel chapter 2, is the 3rd kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. And we know that's the Grecian kingdom. Greek civilization had a powerful influence on the Roman Empire. And actually, before I even go to that, so the beast has 4 heads and wings of a bird. I believe the bird represents the wings represent this Grecian influence going out into all the world. Because as we see, a 3rd kingdom of bronze which will rule over all the earth. That's this Grecian kingdom that began with the kingdom of Greece, but it has 4 heads. So the wings, I believe, represent like the Grecian influence in the Grecian kingdom going out into the world, And the 4 heads, I believe, are first Greece, we read here, Greek civilization had a powerful influence on the Roman Empire. Indeed, some modern scholars see the Roman era as a continuation of the same civilization, which they label Greco-Roman. In any case, the Roman conquest carried many features of Greek civilization to far-flung parts of the Mediterranean world and Western Europe. Through the meditation of the Romans, therefore, Greek civilization came to be the founding culture of Western civilization. So I believe Rome is the second head of the leopard. The leopard has 4 heads. I believe the first head is Greece. The second head is Rome. And as we read here, in the east it continued as the Byzantine Empire. And speaking of the Roman Empire, in the east it continued as the Byzantine Empire until the death of Constantine and the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. So that's when they fell to the Ottoman Empire. But the Ottoman Empire isn't a Western empire. So who rose after that? 1453 is when they fell. Pretty shortly after that is the beginning of the British Empire. And the British Empire officially lasted, well, the first British Empire officially lasted, though the origins were earlier, officially lasted until 1783. And the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, 7 years previous. So I believe what we see here, I believe the leopard with the 4 heads is the Greek civilization, the Greek Western civilization, the Grecian kingdom, which rules over all the earth and is still in charge of the earth, is still ruling over all the earth up until the end. And so I believe the 4 heads of the Grecian kingdom are Greece, Rome, Britain, and America. After this I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying, and extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth. And this is the same 4th beast that we see in Daniel 2. And there shall be a 4th kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And if you watch my Daniel 2 video, I explain how I believe the iron represents the angels, fallen angels, and the mixing with humans here in the 4th beast kingdom. After this I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong. It had large iron teeth, and the teeth, the mouth of a lion. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. See, we go over to Revelation 13. Let me find it. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and the mouth like the mouth of a lion. This is the beast of Revelation 13. So as we see right here, it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. So the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion. And it was different from all the beasts which were before it. And it had 10 horns. So before we even move further, we have this 4th beast, which is this final world empire, also known as the New World Order, or the coming one world government that we see right in front of our faces right now, about to form and take place. We see all this coming together right now. This fourth beast kingdom is beginning to rise. And we'll get more into that here in a second. So we have the beast kingdom with 10 horns. And we learn the 10 horns represent, that's kings. 10 kings. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them. And 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts. And we see also in Revelation 13 there was given him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. So the Antichrist, so this is the Antichrist, the little horn that comes up among them, among the first 10 kings. And we see with the eyes of a man here. It said this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man. Proverbs 27:20 says, Sheol and Abaddon are never satisfied, nor are the eyes of man ever satisfied. So we have the tie here with Abaddon and the eyes of man. This horn possessed eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth uttering great boasts. And Abaddon is what we see right here in Revelation 9, when speaking of the bottomless pit being opened and the locust creatures coming out. And it says they have his king over them, the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in the Greek he has the name Apollyon. And Revelation 11:7 tells us, when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the abyss, which is Abaddon, Apollyon, will make war with them and overcome them and kill them. And so to finish this verse 8, while I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. So 3 of the first 10 kings are taken out. We're gonna learn are taken out at the beginning of the day of the Lord, when, as a result of something to do with the little horn, the Antichrist, and that's when he begins to rise at the beginning of the day of the Lord. And I believe Daniel chapter 8 tells us who these 3 horns are that fall. And we'll get into more of that later, but on to the other side of things here in Daniel chapter 7, because we're told two parts of the same story. Because on earth, we're seeing what's happening on earth, and we're seeing what's happening in heaven at the same time here in Daniel 7. So what we've been reading is what's happening on earth during this time. Now what's about to happen in heaven. I kept looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. That's the Father. And his vesture was like white snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him, and myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat, and the books were open. And we see that thousands gathered to him here in Revelation chapter 5. Then I looked and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, and the living creatures and the elders. And the number of them was myriads and myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing." And what happens next? We're going to see what happens next. But first, on to the other side of things. Back to the other side of things. Then I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and his body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time. And this is interesting, because when the beast is slain and his body given to the burning fire, that's at the end of the tribulation time, so they're granted an extension of life beyond that. But back to what's happening in heaven. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days. So first, the Son of Man is the Son of God, Yeshua, Jesus Christ. And he came up to the Father, the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And this is what we see when he comes on the clouds. Revelation 1:7, "Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. And the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. So it is to be. Amen." And in Revelation 14, "Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like a son of man, having a golden crown on his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, 'Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap is come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe.' Then he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped." So when he comes on the cloud here, when he comes on the clouds of heaven, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming, and he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. So when he comes before the Ancient of Days and is presented before him, that's what we see in Revelation chapter 4. We see the picture of the temple in heaven, because the Ancient of Days is sitting here on the throne, which is the Ark of the Covenant, and the lampstand, and 144,000 of the believers. And it's what we see here. "After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I had heard, like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me, said, 'Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things.' Immediately I was in a spirit, and behold, a throne was standing in heaven, and one sitting on the throne." And then here we see the 24 elders. And here, verse 5, out from the throne come flashes of lightning, and sounds and peals of thunder. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God, and also the 7 churches, because the 7 spirits of God, that's the Holy Spirit that dwells in the 7 churches, that dwells in the believers. So that's what we see right here, the 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. And I believe it's here, no, but he's the Lamb is standing in the midst of the lampstands. So Yeshua brings us before the Father. He comes on the clouds of heaven, gets us, brings us before the Father. And what happens? This is what happens when we go into the temple in heaven. First we sing a new song, which we see throughout the book of Revelation, and praise God. But we see here, and to him was given dominion, to Yeshua was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which will not pass away, and his kingdom one which will not be destroyed. And that's what we see here in Daniel chapter 2. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these other kingdoms, and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me. I approached one of those who were standing by and began asking him the exact meaning of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. See, here's where things change and we start to see another fulfillment. These great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will arise from the earth. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom for all ages to come. So these 4 beasts also represent 4 kings. 4 of the 10 kings that we see in the 4th beast kingdom. And so one of these 4 kings, so if these 4 beasts represent 4 kings which will arise, one of them is the 4th beast, and that would be represented by the Antichrist. And then we would have 3 other kings. Well, technically more than that, and we'll see that in a second. But we're going to have the lion, the bear. So the lion is one of the 10 kings of the 4th beast kingdom. The bear is another one. And as we're going to see in the next chapter, when the head of the Grecian kingdom, when the head of the leopard, the current ruling head of the leopard, falls, 4 more pop up in its place. So I'm going to go through who I believe these are here in a second. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, for all ages to come. Then I desired to know the exact meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its claws of bronze, and which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the remainder with his feet. And the meaning of the 10 horns which were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 of them fell, namely, that horn which had eyes, and a mouth uttering great boasts, which was larger in appearance than its associates. I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints, and overpowering them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast will be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and tread it down, and crush it. As for the 10 horns out of this kingdom, 10 kings will arise, and another will arise after them. He will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue three kings. And speaking of the Antichrist, the little horn, he will speak out against the Most High, and wear down the saints of the highest one. And he will intend to make alterations in times and in law. And it will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time, which represents 3.5 years. A time is 1 year, times that's 2, so it's 3.5 years. So this is speaking of when the Antichrist is truly given power, halfway through. But the court will sit for judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the dominions will serve and obey him. At this point the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming me, and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Alright, so now I'm going to go through what I believe we have, or what I believe we're seeing in the world right now, and with these beasts. So let's go over to Revelation 13. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads. And on his horns were 10 crowns, and on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, because we're going to learn it comes out of the Grecian kingdom, out of the current Grecian kingdom, America. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. So these are different parts, different members of the beast kingdom, as well as different attributes of the Antichrist, because we learn the Antichrist is we hit like a leopard, the feet of a bear, mouth like the mouth of a lion. The little horn has a mouth like the mouth of a lion, uttering great boasts. As we see, there's given her mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and feet like the feet of a bear. And the bear had 3 ribs in his mouth. And Daniel, behold, another beast, the second one resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And the Antichrist is the one who's responsible for the 3 of the first horns to be pulled out. So if we go back to the beginning of this year, the beginning of 2020, everyone knows this has been a crazy year. And if we go back to the 3rd day of the year, that's when the shot heard around the world was occurred when Soleimani was assassinated, and that, I believe, started a lot of things. It's interesting. So since then, first off, Iran said they were going to have 3 days of mourning, and then they were going to retaliate. So if you take those 3 days, it ended up on the 7th. And I'll get more into this later on, but I believe there's a 21-day battle in heaven kicked off with a battle between the current head of the Grecian kingdom and the Persian kingdom, and we see that in the next chapter of Daniel. But so here with so the 21 days, you go from the 7th is when they said they were going to retaliate. Take the 21 days that we see in Daniel 10, and it lands on the exact day of the peace deal being released, the 28th of this year. And 3 days after that is when Brexit was official. And I've been looking at this Brexit thing for a while, and I knew it was something big because of how big it was on the scene and what the days we're living in and everything. But so I believe after much consideration, I believe this lion, because we know these 4 beasts represent kings that will arise during the end time. So I believe this lion, the first was like a lion and had wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a human mind also was given to it. So remember how I was saying that the leopard with the wings representing the Grecian kingdom, the Western culture, going out into all the world. And in the same way, I believe this means multiple things, but the wings being plucked and lifted up from the ground, made on stand on 2 feet like a man. I believe that's what we see with Brexit, and the Brexit is, so the UK stopped being a member of the European Union it was 11 p.m. on January 31st of this year, 3 days after the peace deal was released. So Britain, or the UK, was a part of the European Union, and therefore that was the wings, I believe. The wings being plucked, being them, and lift and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, being the UK breaking off from agreements and everything that they had going on with all these European Union countries, and made stand on 2 feet like a man. So I believe what we see is with Brexit is the lion, and so I believe um, we see the lion of Daniel chapter 7 right here, and also one of the 10 kings. So I believe this is one of the 10 kings, one of the 10 kings of the beast kingdom, and also the lion. And yeah, I may be wrong on some of this stuff. Like I said, some of this stuff I don't know if we can know 100% yet, but this is my understanding. I believe this is what I was shown. So, next beast. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear. And actually, first off, here's the British coat of arms, and we see the lion here on the British coat of arms, and white horse, unicorn on the other side. Interesting. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And they said to it, Arise, devour much meat. And remember, the bear is the feet. It says in Daniel chapter 2, it will trample down, where we at? Trample down and devour with its feet. And so I believe what we see here, the 3 ribs in his mouth, because I believe the bear, I believe this king is going to be involved in the fall of the 3 ribs. I don't believe he's the little horn, which is really responsible, but he's going to be involved in the fall. That's why we see this. So I believe we're seeing the rise of the beast right now, and I believe the bear is right here. And also in January, it says it's not every day that an entire government resigns, but that's what happened in Russia on Wednesday, as President Vladimir Putin announced plans for major constitutional reforms that could extend his grip on power long after his term in office is supposed to end. I believe that's what we see with the bear being raised up on one side. The entire Russian government just resigned, giving Putin full power. And so with the leopard, when it comes down to, so the current head of this leopard, because the leopard has 4 heads, which I believe are Greece, Rome, Britain, and America. So the 4th head of this leopard currently is the current king of the Grecian, current leader of the Grecian kingdom, who everybody is familiar with. And what we're going to see in the next chapter is what is about to happen, and where we get the rest of these, or where we get at least a few more of the rest of these 10 horns, because when this current head of the leopard falls, his kingdom falls with it. And that's when the day of the Lord begins. And we learn 4 more pop up in its place. And that's where we get 4 more of the 10 kings, which are from the Western empires. So that's the leopard. We have the lion, I believe, the bear, and the 4 heads of the leopard is what pops up when the current head of the leopard falls. And then that's going to be 6 of the 7 remaining kings that are going to reign with the Antichrist. Because as we see right here, where are we at? Then a little horn came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And who was the little horn? I don't know. I don't know yet. I have a decent idea, but God hasn't confirmed it to me yet, and I don't want to present that yet. But this is what I believe God has given us here in Daniel 7, and the Word of God is so deep. There are also other, there's also other fulfillments in different ways. But this is what I'm seeing here in Daniel chapter 7, and how we see the formation of this coming beast kingdom. Hopefully this was edifying. Hopefully this is correct. Like I said, take it to the Word, take it to prayer. This is what I see. This is my current understanding, and I pray that everyone was edified. Thanks for tuning in. I love you guys. Shalom.